you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, you know, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
The massive fraud that's been discovered in Minnesota under Tim Walz's watch has truly been a bombshell revelation. And of course, it's so bad that many Democrats haven't been able to defend it, including Jessica Tarlov over here on Fox News. So of course, what we're going to see today is Jesse Waters actually laying down the law in terms of what was going on. So before we get to these clips, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe on this video so we can get through the algorithms. Here we go.
Some members of Minnesota's Somali community allegedly billed state agencies for millions in social services that were never delivered. The suspects targeted programs to fight homelessness and provide therapy for autistic children. Instead, spent the money on cars, houses, and overseas real estate projects. And now, hundreds of Minnesota state government workers are saying that Governor Tim Walz is, quote, 100% responsible for the massive fraud and turning a blind eye to the corruption. But all the failed Veep wants to do is deflect.
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail.
I don't want to malign the reputation of large-scale not-for-profits because they don't all do this. But this Feeding Our Future, which is the main not-for-profit involved in this, is obviously a tremendous problem. And they started being prosecuted by Merrick Garland. I mean, this goes back to the last administration. I really hate people and organizations that took advantage of COVID money. It was a desperate, heartbreaking time in this country where people were dying, losing their businesses. Their kids were not in school. They didn't know how to take care of them. You all remember what it was like. My dad had a small business during COVID. I'm watching him do the applications for, you know, to get the COVID relief funds. It was a painstaking problem and process. And to see $1 billion just go. And I err towards the side of generosity. I understood that part of what Tim Walz was saying, that if an extra dollar goes to someone who didn't need that dollar, but you're talking about $1 billion. And in the Times piece, when they talk about the whistleblower retaliation, saying that the Walz administration was using monitoring and threats to make sure that they couldn't come forward, those are really serious allegations that he's going to have to deal with. And there are other state officials like Amy Klobuchar, I shouldn't say state officials, Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. I don't think they like this. I don't think that they would be interested in this. And it'll be fascinating to follow kind of the fallout from it because it's not going to stop, right? This is kind of like a snowball going down the hill super fast at this point. And they have a lot of documented evidence of what's going on, like emails from people associated with Feeding Our Future saying that if you don't approve new minority-owned businesses, that accusations of racism are going to fly all over the news. Like, it feels a little dead to rights at this point.
So 30 to 40% of household income in the Somali community there is tied to U.S. taxpayer-funded welfare programs.
Oh, really? Because that's funny, because they never said that that happens. They always say they're very self-sufficient, but go ahead.
Right, that's the point. But he claims that his state, you know, everything is well-run, everyone is prosperous and happy and fulfilled. Either way, he's either totally letting down that community or totally letting down the community.
She just agreed.
Jesse, also, so 30 to 40% of household income in the Somali community there is tied to U.S. taxpayer-funded welfare programs.
Oh, really? Because that's funny, because they never said that that happens. They always say they're very self-sufficient, but go ahead.
Right, that's the point. But he claims that his state, you know, everything is well-run, everyone is prosperous and happy and fulfilled. Either way, he's either totally letting down that community or totally letting down the communities that are being taken advantage of by the crooks of those 30 to 40%.
Right. So this is another crazy story. Somalia. Terrible place. Civil war. Clinton comes in, Black Hawk Down, feels guilty, says, the way we're going to do this, we'll just bring them all here, and just starts paroling tens of thousands of Somalians into Minnesota. Now, why Minnesota of all places? It's not warm. It's not like New York City. It's because the Latin American migrants hadn't gotten there yet. So the business community was like, let's send them to Minneapolis because that'll keep profits up and keep the wages down. And then we could all pat ourselves on the back and say diversity is our strength, right? So everybody gets Social Security numbers and everybody gets welfare. And they form this huge voting block in the city. I think it's 80,000 Somalians are in the state of Minnesota, and they all vote Democrat. And so who figured this whole thing out? Wasn't just New York Times, wasn't just Chris Rufo. Doge. What did we hear in the beginning of the year? That criminals were ripping off nonprofits. They were just stealing money. Dana's right. They happened in New York. It happened in LA. Remember they had, was it $24 billion for the homeless? You don't think this is happening in every city across the country? That's where the money's going. Democrats are always so worried about inflation and the social welfare net. It's because criminals are stealing it and they won't do anything about it. And they didn't do anything about it because of racism. Whistleblowers, like Dana said, out the wazoo, but the Democrats didn't want to touch it because they were going to be called racist. So they let them steal $1 billion. And now they're all broke. And now they look stupid. And you know who looks really stupid? Dana's right. Again, Kamala. Not only did she miss this thievery, they missed him lying about going to war. They missed him honeymooning in Beijing, tampons in the men's room. This guy was the only VP worse than she, and she picked him.
So yeah, obviously this is a pretty bad situation, okay? But what we have to also keep in mind is that this money that was stolen didn't just go into the Somalis' pockets, right? It was also sent overseas to terrorist organizations. All right, so our tax dollars are funding terrorism around the world. And of course, it was stolen by people who had no scruples about taking that money under fraudulent precepts. Okay, because when you import the third world, you're going to get third world activity. But something else that was also interesting from Emily Campagno was that, yeah, 30 to 40% of these Somali households receive government assistance, right? Tax dollars out of Minnesota's pockets, out of our pockets. All right, and I don't know if you've seen this floating around yet, but we have over here from the Center of Immigration Statistics, this breakdown of households receiving welfare, right? And if you'll notice, red is illegal immigrant households, of which 59% receive welfare benefits. And you'll notice the blue marker is legal immigrant households, 52% receive welfare benefits. And the green is the native households, right? 39% receiving welfare benefits, okay? But I thought, according to the Democrats, that this was a net gain for our country, right? That immigrants, of course, bring in more money than they actually cost us, which of course we all know is completely false because yes, they do pay taxes on goods that they buy, but they're not necessarily paying income taxes. So on the low end, illegal immigrants pay about $31 billion in taxes and yet cost anywhere from $150 to $400 billion each year, right? That's a huge net loss for this nation. But of course, according to the left, they're a net benefit to this country, which I'm basically not seeing, all right? But what I am seeing is the crime happening in Minnesota by these communities. And this, of course, is where Jesse Waters brings up a very interesting point, right? A lot of this fraud that was being discovered by Doge is simply happening because no one's watching. There's no oversights. There was no line items on expenditures, just blank checks being written and sent out to who knows who for who knows what purpose, right? And at least I'll say this, we do have some kudos for Merrick Garland for at least investigating this, for starting this, right? Because as we saw, many people in Minnesota under duress from the Walz administration actually were turned away from all of their whistleblowing and threatened, okay? And also by the Somali community, right? We're going to have accusations of racism if you continue to look into this, right? That is what we're getting in this horrible story. And it's so bad, of course, that as I mentioned, even Jessica Tarlov couldn't deny it. And while you are seeing some Democrats circle the wagons to try to protect the Somali community over there in Minnesota, most of us can say, yeah, this is pretty bad. So of course, let the investigations begin and let the denaturalization and deportations begin. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and say hi to your mom for me. Do you like t-shirts? Of course you do. And now you can support the channel by buying an Angry Teacher t-shirt designed by me, Angry Teacher. So if you like America, if you like freedom, if you like liberty, then go ahead and click the link in the description where all designs, of course, are 100% mother approved. So enjoy yourself and find something you like today.